Hello and welcome to week 5 of the Sirdar Christmas Crochet Along. So last week was quite a big week. We started making the appliques, adding them onto the train. We also made these side panels of the spiked granny stitches. So the blanket's really growing now and taking shape. I hope you enjoyed the combination of the slightly more relaxing and repetitive granny spike stitches compared with the contrast of making the smaller appliques, because we're going to be doing something quite similar this week. We're going to be continuing making some more appliques for the train panel and also for a few other areas of the blanket, and then we're going to work on the loopy foliage sections at the top. So these have this lovely red and white stripy section followed by some loopy foliage with little red berries and yellow bells hidden in there. So if you're ready, let's get started with the tutorials for this week. Okay, so now we're going to make our loopy foliage panels with the red and white stripy sections as well. And I'm just going to show you how to make a small part of it at the end of this solid granny square. So this would correspond to the bottom section, but you make the top section in exactly the same way. So take the signal red yarn and make a slip knot and pop it on your hook, and then join this will be the bottom left hand corner of the solid granny square beneath the nice list panel. Obviously by this point you'd have your spiked granny stitch section coming out to this side, but for the purposes of this demonstration we haven't got that bit present. So join it by just yarning over and pulling through everything on your hook and then pulling that slip stitch tight. And then for the base row, the setup row 1, we're just going to be working double crochet stitches all the way along, not just this solid granny square but all along the bottom of the train panel as well. So you start by doing a chain 1, which doesn't count as a stitch. You work 1 double crochet into that corner chain space, and then continuing along, make sure you don't miss it because sometimes it can get slightly covered up, that first treble crochet, but work 1 double crochet into each treble crochet all along the bottom of the granny square. And you're going to continue along the blanket, work, as I said, a double crochet into each treble crochet at the bottom of the granny square, then work a double crochet into this corner chain space of the granny square. Then you're going to work 2 double crochets into the side of each of the 2 edge rows of the train panel, and then 1 double crochet in the bottom of each foundation treble crochet from the bottom of the train panel, and end with 2 pairs of double crochet, 2 double crochet into each of the 2 edge rows down the right hand side of the train panel. And you do exactly the same thing when you're working this along the top, except you'll be working in the opposite direction. So it's important to make sure you get the right stitches in the right places so that you end up with an odd number of double crochet stitches at the end of the row. I'm just going to show you a small section, so I'm going to stop double crocheting shortly and make sure that I've got an odd number so that I can turn my work over and show you the next row. So let me just check these. No, I have an even number, so I'm going to work 1 more, and then let's say that's the final double crochet of the row. We're going to turn our work over and then work row 2. So row 2 starts with a chain again, which doesn't count as a stitch. Then we're going to work 1 double crochet into that last stitch from row 1. Then we chain 1, skip the next double crochet and work 1 double crochet into the next double crochet, and then just keep repeating that. Chain 1, skip a double crochet and work a double crochet into the next double crochet. So this is really fast. Chain 1, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, making sure you skip a stitch each time you chain 1. And just keep doing that all the way to the end of the row. And because you've got an odd number of stitches, this means that your row will start and end with a double crochet. So a few more to go. Chain 1, skip a double crochet, chain 1, and then work a double crochet into the final double crochet. And we're going to change colour now, so we're not going to do the final yarn over and pull through, but we're going to get our cream yarn and pull through with that. So we have the cream yarn on our hook ready to start row 3. And we can also cut this section of the red yarn at this point, leaving that end to weave in later. So we'll turn our work over, ready to do row 3. Just get the ends out the way. So row 3 starts with a chain 1 and a double crochet into that final double crochet from the previous row. You might find that it gets a bit loose if you haven't yet sewn in the end, but just tug on the end and it will tighten up the stitches, making it easier for you to see where they are. So make a double crochet into that first or last double crochet from the previous row. Then we're going to work a treble crochet, and this treble crochet is made around the chain and into the skipped double crochet down here from 2 rows below, like that. And then we're going to chain 1, skip the next double crochet, and then we'll make a treble crochet again around the chain and into the double crochet that we skipped from 2 rows below. And then chain 1 again and treble crochet into the skipped double crochet from 2 rows below. Chain 1. So all of the double crochets from the previous row, we're skipping them all. We're not doing any work at all into the previous row. We're just doing chain 1 and working the treble crochets into the skipped double crochets from 2 rows below. Now, unlike the spiked treble crochets, you don't need to pull these up taller because the row above is only the height of a double crochet stitch, not the height of a treble crochet stitch. So just a normal treble crochet stitch is fine when you're doing these. Make sure you make it around the train, not in front of it or behind it, so that the chain is covered up on both sides of the work, and then the stripy pattern that we're going to create will be visible on both sides of your work. And then when you get to the end of the row and you've worked your last treble crochet, you work 1 last double crochet into that first double crochet from the previous row, and at this point we're also going to change back to red again, so we won't do the final pull through, we'll just leave that stitch with 2 loops on our hook and get our signal red yarn again, loop it over our hook and pull through, so we're ready to do the next row with red yarn. And we can also cut this end of cream yarn out of the way. So I'm going to turn the work over now, ready to do row 4 with the red yarn. And this is very similar to row 3. We start with 1 chain, which doesn't count as a stitch, and then we work 1 double crochet into the first stitch, which was that last double crochet from row 3. Then we're going to chain 1, skip that treble crochet from the previous row and work 1 treble crochet into the skipped double crochet from 2 rows below. So the top, it's this one here. Put your hook through the top of it and just work a treble crochet as normal. Chain 1 again, skip that treble crochet, work a treble crochet into that skipped double crochet from 2 rows below, making sure you make your treble crochets around the chain from the previous row. And you can see now the stripe pattern starting to appear. It becomes more apparent as you add more rows, but you just keep going along, chain 1, skip a treble crochet and treble crochet into the next double crochet. Just get a bit more yarn, chain 1, skip a stitch, treble crochet into the skipped stitch, chain 1, skip a stitch and treble crochet into the skipped stitch from 2 rows below. Keep going until you get to the end of the row. And so when you get to the end of the row, the previous row started with a double crochet and then immediately a treble crochet. So we do a chain, I've just made the chain to skip that treble crochet, and then we end the row with a double crochet into the top of that double crochet that started the previous row. And again, we're going to change colour at the end of this row. So we'll have our cream yarn and do the final pull through with cream yarn, so we've got it on our hook ready to start the next row. Snip off the red yarn and turn our work over, ready for row 5. And row 5 is exactly the same pattern as row 3. So you chain 1 to start, make sure you're using the right end of your yarn. All the rows start and end with a double crochet into the double crochet from the previous row, and then you're either doing treble crochet into 2 rows below and then a chain 1, or chain 1 and then a treble crochet. So you can see that this row starts with a treble crochet and then we chain 1 and skip that red treble crochet and treble crochet into the treble crochet from 2 rows below that was skipped. And I think it's in this row really that you really get to see the stripy pattern emerging now. You can see those stripes of white starting to go up and red in between them, and you just continue in this way, alternating rows of red and white until you've done 7 rows, and I will meet you again at row 8. So as you can see, some Christmas elves have been hard at work, and lucky for me I have another swatch here all ready to show you row 8 of this section. So row 7 was finished by changing to the red yarn, so we're all ready to turn our work over and start row 8. And this row starts again with 1 chain, which doesn't count as a stitch. Then we do 1 double crochet into the last double crochet of the previous row, and then we're going to work a double crochet into each treble stitch, and around the chains we'll work a treble crochet into the treble crochet from 2 rows below. So we're going to be filling in all the gaps in this row. So we work a double crochet into the top of the treble, and then a treble into the top of the treble from 2 rows below, another double crochet into the top of the treble, and a treble into the treble crochet from 2 rows below, and just continue in this way all of the way along the row, filling in all the gaps, not creating any more chain spaces, and then it finishes it off with a solid row of red as it began. Here we go. It's quite easy to see what you've got to do on these rows. Just getting the yarn. Oops. So nearly there, and I'll just show you the end of the row in a moment, because we're going to be changing at the end of this row. We're going to be changing to a new colour, ready to start the next section of this panel. Oops. There we go. And by this point in your work, the red and white stripes will be really clear. It doesn't take long for them to appear and start showing themselves after just a few rows. There we go. Double crochet, treble crochet into the treble crochet, double crochet again, and treble crochet. Just a few more to go to the end of the row. Double, treble, and then the row ends as it started really. We're going to make a double crochet into that treble, and then another double crochet into the first double crochet of the previous row. And we're going to change colour again at the end of this row. So we'll leave our hook with 2 loops on it, and the next colour we're going to use is emerald. So get your emerald yarn, pop it over your hook and put it through those 2 loops, and then cut your red yarn and move that out of the way, because you won't be needing that again for a while. So that's row 8 finished, and we're ready to move on to row 9 with the emerald on our hook. So we'll turn our work over, and row 9 is a nice easy row. We're just going to double crochet all the way along in the top of each stitch. So we start with 1 chain, which doesn't count as a stitch. We work 1 double crochet into that first stitch, and then just keep working along 1 double crochet into each double crochet and each treble crochet from the previous row. So I'm going to keep going all the way along and then meet you at the end of this row, still with emerald, ready to crochet the next row. So I've finished my row of double crochet for row 9 now, and I'm ready to turn my work over, continuing with the emerald yarn to work row 10. Now this is our first loop stitch row, and you'll notice that you're working on the wrong side of your work now. Loop stitches are always formed on the wrong side because the loops are going to point out the back from the way that you're working, which is the front of our work. So we start this row with 1 chain, which doesn't count as a stitch, and then we're going to work 1 loop stitch into each of these double crochets. Now, to form a loop stitch, you take the working yarn and put it so it goes up the front of your finger and then down the back, and then it's like working a double crochet, but we're going to grab a specific part of the yarn with our hook. So you insert your hook into the next stitch, so into the first double crochet from the previous row, and the bit of the yarn we want is this loop strand that's going down the back of our finger, but we're not going to just reach and grab it. We've got to go pass our hook round in front to the right of the front strand, and then grab that back strand from the back, pull it back round and through your stitch so that you've got 2 loops on your hook. Then you can hold that loop with these 2 fingers if you want to, and take your working yarn over and pull through the 2 loops on your hook. I'll show you that slowly a few more times just so you can see. So have the working yarn going up and over your finger, up the front and down the back. Insert your hook into the next stitch, pass it over the yarn at the front to the right, grab the strand from the back, pull it back round and through your stitch so you've got 2 loops on your hook, then yarn over and pull through those 2 loops. So again, have the working yarn over your finger, up the front, down the back, insert your hook through the next stitch, take it over that front strand to the right, grab the strand at the back, pull it back through to the front. I like to hold that loop then with the fingers on my right hand just to keep it out of the way, yarn over and pull through the 2 loops on your hook. While you're making the loop stitch, you want to get your loops all approximately the same size to keep them all nice and even. It can take a bit of practice, quite a bit of practice, to get the hang of this stitch if you've not tried it before. So what I recommend you do is, if it's not going right to start with, don't worry, just keep going and do a nice long stretch of them. And once you're happy with the size and the way you're making your loop stitches, then you can just frog your practice stitches and then go back and make them all the same size. As you can see, mine are, I'm not making the loop too tight. It's not, my finger's not close to the work. It's a few centimetres away from the work, probably about 2 or 3 centimetres. And then what that means is that I've got space to pass my hook around the back, grab that yarn, and then I can get my finger out of this loop easily without having to wiggle it out. But it's not a massive loop. You could make them bigger if you wanted to. It's up to you, but I suggest doing them about that size. So have the yarn going up and over your finger, pass your hook through the stitch, round to the right of the front strand, grab the back strand, pull it through, and then yarn over. I'll just pause here to show you. You can see them peeping out the top, but if I turn my work over, you can see that all these loop stitches are coming out on this side of the work. They're sort of pointing upwards a bit at the moment, but as you add more rows of them, they'll all bustle out to the front a bit more. So keep going, working in loop stitch all the way along the row, working 1 loop stitch in each double crochet, and I'll meet you at the end of the row. So for row 11 we're going to be using the Zest yarn and also Signal Red yarn. I'm going to start with the Zest and we're going to join that to the last loop stitch of the previous row. So make a slip knot, insert your hook into the loop as normal, tighten it up and find the last loop stitch of your previous row. You might have to push down the loop stitches a little bit with your thumb so you can easily see the tops of the stitches that you're going to be working into. Insert your hook into that stitch, yarn over and pull through everything to join your yarn, then tighten it up with the tail, move that out of the way. Then we're going to chain 1 and work 7 double crochets into the first 7 stitches, including that first stitch that you joined to. So 1, you do have to keep pushing down the loop stitches at this stage to make sure that you don't accidentally crochet into them and catch them. You don't want to catch them within the row that you're crocheting now. So just as you work along, make sure you keep pushing them down out of the way. So I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 now. So I need 1 more, but on this 7th one, we're going to change colour to red. So I'll pause at this point before the final yarn over and pick up my red yarn and put that over my hook and pull it through, ready to work the next stitch with the red yarn. So just move the Zest to the back for now. And the next stitch is a puff stitch, and we're going to work this by doing a yarn over, insert the hook into that stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, and we're going to do that 3 times in total. So that was 1, so we're going to do it twice more, yarn over, insert the hook, yarn over again and pull up a loop, yarn over, insert the hook into the same stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. So now we've got 7 loops of red on our hook, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then we're going to do a final yarn over and pull through all of the loops on our hook, but we're also going to switch back to Zest at this point. So we'll leave the red yarn here behind our work, pick up the Zest again, just give it a little tug to make sure the last double crochet that you made in Zest is nice and tight, yarn over with Zest and pull through all of those 7 loops on your stitch in one go. So you've got Zest on your hook ready to make the next stitch. So we're going to continue making 9 more double crochets in Zest. 1, 2, keep pushing down the loops, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's the 8th one, and on the 9th one we're going to switch back to using the red again. So at the point where you've got 2 loops on your hook, just remembered I've forgotten to carry along the Signal Red with me. So I'm just going to frog back the last 2 stitches. You don't have to crochet over it for every stitch, so I'm going to crochet over it in the middle here and float it along behind, but you can choose however many stitches you want to float it along beforehand. So pick up the red and make sure you crochet over it every so often to carry it along between the berries. If you want, you could cut it and weave it in, but you'd have to sew in your end for each berry. So for 9 stitches I prefer to carry it along with me, provided of course that I remember to do so. So we've got 5 now, 6, 7, crochet over it again there for 8, and then on the 9th stitch before the final yarn over, I'm going to drop the zest, pick up the red, just give it a little tug to make sure it's lying tightly, not too tight behind those stitches, and then I've got red on my hook ready to make the next puff stitch. So I can leave the zest running behind the puff stitch because it's just one stitch. So we're going to yarn over, insert the hook into our work, yarn over and pull up a loop, and we do that 2 more times so that we have 7 loops in total on our hook. There we go. And then for the final yarn over and pull through, we switch back to zest again, so we've got it ready on our hook to make the next stitch. So then we're going to continue along in that pattern, doing 9 double crochets in zest, followed by a puff stitch in signal red until you get to the end of the row. So you'll do that, you'll have 15 puff stitches in red, and then you end with a 16th puff stitch in red and 7 double crochets in zest to get to the end of your row. My row is obviously slightly shorter and a slightly different length, so I'm going to have a slightly different number of stitches, but I'm going to continue along with the double crochets and puff stitches and then meet you at the end of the row. So I've finished row 11 now, which is my series of double crochet and puff stitches, and at the end of the row we don't need the red anymore, so we can cut that, leaving an end to sew in, and then we'll turn our work over to the wrong side, ready to work row 12. And this is the same as row 10, so we're going to work a row of loop stitches into each double crochet and each puff stitch from the previous row. When you've turned your work over, you'll see that most likely the puff stitches are coming out towards you to the back of the work, so just gently at this point give them a little push and push them through so that they put forward to the front of your work like that. So this row starts with 1 chain, which doesn't count as a stitch, and then we make a loop stitch into that first stitch, and every other, let's try that one again, make a loop stitch into that first stitch and into every other stitch, including the puff stitches, all the way along the row. And as you do so, you can push your little puff stitches through to the right side of the front side of your work. So I'm going to keep going all the way along with these loop stitches in zest, and I will meet you at the end of the row. So I've just finished my row of loop stitch for row 12, and I'm going to cut my zest yarn and fasten off here, and then we'll turn over ready to do row 13. So for row 13 we're going to be using emerald again and also the yellow cornfield yarn. So I've got them both ready to go. So we're going to start by joining the emerald yarn into the last loop stitch from the previous row. So make a slip knot and join it in the normal way. And then this is quite similar to row 11 in that we're going to be working a combination of double crochets and puff stitches. So we start with 1 chain and we work a double crochet into that first stitch because the chain doesn't count as a stitch, Then we need to work 12 double crochets in total this time before our first puff stitch. So where the red berries are here and here, we're going to make yellow berries or yellow bells this time, and they're going to be positioned at points in between each pair of red berries. So we need to work 12 double crochets in emerald, and on the last one we'll change colour to cornfield in the final step. So we've done 1, 2, 3, 4, remembering to push these loop stitches down out the way each time as you work, so that you can clearly see which stitch you need to work into. Let me just check how many I've done. 2, 4, 6, 8, so I need 4 more. 1, 2, 3, and then on this last one we're going to stop at that point before the final yarn over and change colour to cornfield. So we'll pop that on our hook and pull it through, and then we're going to make 1 puff stitch, same way as we did before in cornfield. Just move the tail behind the work. So we yarn over, insert, yarn over and pull up, and we do that 3 times so that we have 7 loops on the hook, and then the final yarn over and pull through all 7 loops is done with emerald, just giving it a little tug to make sure the previous double crochet is nice and tight. And then it's the same pattern as before. Then we're going to do double crochet in emerald followed by a puff stitch in cornfield, and keep doing that all the way along the row, ending with 12 double crochets in emerald. So I'm going to keep going, crocheting over the cornfield yarn between the puff stitches, and then meet you again at the end of the row. So I've just reached the end now of row 13, so I'm going to cut the end of my cornfield yarn because we don't need it anymore, and then the rest of this section continues in the same way with a row of loop stitch in emerald, then the 2 rows with zest and the red berries, and then finally another row of emerald without any bells this time, and a row of loop stitch. So I will continue working that, and then I will meet you at the end of row 18 ready to start row 19. So here's the sample worked up to the end of row 18, which is a final loop stitch row with the emerald, and it's been fastened off. And the next stage will be simply to repeat this red and white stripy section again up here. So you'll join the signal red yarn to the last loop stitch of the previous row, and then simply repeat these rows at the end of the final row in signal red. You don't need to change to emerald like we did last time, you'll just fasten off, and then that will be this panel complete. There's another one obviously to make on the other side of the blanket, and then you'll see that you have 4 spaces at each corner of the blanket, which we will be filling in later. And if you have time, as always, I recommend that you sew in your ends. to make the drumsticks, we're going to use the yellow cornfield yarn and some chocolate yarn. So the sticks are made with cornfield yarn, and you'll need 2 sticks. We start off by making a slip knot and popping the loop on our hook. And the sticks are made with 10 foundation double crochet stitches. So we've met foundation treble crochet before, but this is the first time we're doing foundation double crochet. It's the same principle as foundation treble crochet, just slightly different way of making the stitches. So to make foundation double crochet, we start off by making 2 chains, and these chains don't count as a stitch. Unlike in foundation treble where the 3 chains did, these 2 chains don't count as a stitch. Then to make the first foundation double crochet, you insert your hook into the first chain, the second one from your hook, the first chain you made, and then you yarn over and pull up a loop. Now if this were a normal double crochet, you'd just yarn over again and pull through both of those 2 loops, but because it's a foundation double crochet, we're going to make a chain first. So we yarn over, pull through that first loop on our hook to make a chain, and then yarn over and pull through both loops on our hook to complete the foundation double crochet. And that's the first foundation double crochet made. So I'll show you how to make the next one slowly as well. So to make the next one, you insert your hook into the bottom of the previous foundation double crochet, so under those 2 strands at the bottom there. Then yarn over and pull it through, so you'll have 2 loops on your hook. Then before you complete the double crochet, you need to make a chain. So you yarn over, pull it through 1 loop, and then yarn over and pull it through 2 loops. And that's the second foundation double crochet made. And to make a drumstick, you just keep going until you have 10 foundation double crochets. So I'll keep going in this way, inserting my hook into the bottom of the previous stitch, pulling up a loop, making a chain, and then completing the double crochet. So that's 3 there now. Yarn over again, make the chain, complete the double crochet. And as when I was working the foundation treble crochet, you'll see that I'm arranging the work so that the row of stitches is running towards me. I find it easier to work in this direction when I'm working the foundation stitches, whether they're foundation double or foundation treble or even foundation half treble. So you just keep working along, keeping your tension nice and even. Obviously drumsticks are usually straight. Don't worry at this stage if you do have a slight curve in your stick, because we're going to sew it on to the blanket, and you can just make sure when you sew it on that you sew it on nice and straight. So nearly there now. I'm just going to do a quick count to see how many I've done, remembering that the first chain 2 here wasn't a stitch, but you can easily see along the top of your work how many you've done. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I've got 10. So I'm going to fasten off at this point because that is 1 drumstick made, and I'm going to leave a nice long tail so I can use that for sewing onto my blanket later. There we go. So you need to make 2 of these and also the 2 heads, which I will show you now. So to make the head of your drumstick, you'll be using the chocolate yarn and working into a magic ring. You'll wrap the yarn around your hand as before, pull up a loop and make 1 chain, which doesn't count as a stitch, and then just work 12 double crochets into this ring. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Then tighten up your magic ring in the normal way, putting on the end and putting on the shortened strand. Just make sure the loop that you've made doesn't get caught up in it, and then pull on your end again to tighten that loop. Put your hook back in the loop where you're working. Make sure you know which end of your yarn is which, and then finish it off with a slip stitch into the top of the first double crochet that you made. Pull it nice and tight and fasten off, and you've probably already got quite a nice long end from your magic loop that you can use for sewing it on, so you don't need to worry about having such a long one this time. You can just weave this one in and use the other end from your magic loop to sew it on, and that's the head of your drumstick made. So just as a reminder, here's your stick and the head together, which will be sewn on together on the blanket, and you need to make 2 of each and sew them on just above the drum. So I'm going to show you how to add the top and bottom layers to your drum, and to do that we're going to use chocolate yarn, and we'll join that to the, if you're right-handed, to make the top row, to the top right hand front loop of the top right hand treble crochet in blue at the top of the drum that I'm indicating with the hook. If you're left-handed, you'll just start from the other end and work along, but in exactly the same process. Because we're joining on the front of our work, I don't like to use a slip stitch and pull it tight. I would just prefer to literally pull up a loop and join it in that way, and then I just secure it afterwards when I weave in the end on the back. So once you've joined it or pulled a loop through that first stitch, you make 1 chain, which doesn't count as a stitch. Again, it will probably get quite loose, but you can just tighten it by pulling on the end of your yarn. And then we're just going to work along, working in all of these unworked front loops, working 1, I'm going to move my yarn end up here, working 1 double crochet in each of these front loops, including the first one where you joined your yarn. So we work 1, so there'll be 18 all together to make this top row of the drum. It can be helpful, as I'm doing, to fold the fabric. It just makes the front loops stand out a bit more and a bit easier to find and poke your hook through. But you just keep going all the way along, working 1 double crochet into each of the unworked front loops. A few more stitches to go, very quick. 1 more, and then when you finish the last stitch, oops, pull the yarn loop a bit bigger and snip your yarn and fasten off, and then when you weave in these ends at either end, just sew them through to the reverse of the blanket before you sew them in. And so that's the top layer or row of your drum, and then you'll just do exactly the same along the bottom, but these stitches are worked into the unworked front loops of the top row of stitches of the carriage. So there's 18 of them. There's 1 just below the bottom right hand corner of the drum that I'm showing you with my hook here, and you'll attach your yarn there as we did up the top here and just work 18 double crochet stitches in chocolate all the way along and fasten off. And once you've done that, you'll need to add in cornfield the yellow zigzag that's shown in the photos. and that's using exactly the same surface crochet technique that we've used elsewhere. And then arrange your drumsticks and drum heads and sew those on above the drum to finish it off. To make the bell, you'll need the cornfield yellow yarn and the chocolate yarn, and also some signal red yarn. Now the first 2 rounds of the bell are the same that we've done several times, so there's a round of 12 treble crochet into a magic ring, and then a round where you work 2 treble crochet into each of the treble crochets from the first round, so you have a round of 24 treble crochets. Then for round 3 you start with 3 chains, which counts as a treble, and then make a treble crochet into the same stitch. And then we're going to work 1 treble crochet into the next stitch, and then 2 treble crochets into the stitch after that, and we're going to repeat that sequence 3 times. So 1 treble crochet, and then 2 treble crochets into the next stitch. That's the first time. And then 1 treble crochet and 2 treble crochets into the next stitch. 1, oops, 2. That's the second time. And then the third time, 1 treble crochet, and then 2 treble crochets. 1, 2. Then after that we work 1 double treble into the next stitch, so yarn over twice. 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to work 2 double trebles into the stitch after that. 1, 2, 3, and then another one into that same stitch. 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to make a corner chain space, so we're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and then work 2 double treble crochets again into the next stitch. There we go. Then after that we work 1 double treble into the next stitch, and then we're going to work 2 trebles into the next stitch twice, so we'll work 2 trebles into this stitch and 2 trebles into the stitch after that. So 1, 2 into that stitch, and then 1, 2 into that stitch. Then we're going to work another double treble crochet, and then into the next stitch we'll work 2 double trebles into the same stitch. 1 and another one. Then we're going to make another corner chain space, so we chain 2, and then we'll work 2 double trebles into the next stitch. 1, yarn over twice, and make the next one. Then after that it's 1 double treble into the following stitch, and then we do the pattern of 2 trebles into the next stitch, and then 1 treble into the stitch after that, and we're going to repeat that pattern 3 times. So we'll go 2 trebles into this stitch and 1 treble into the next stitch. So that's the first time, and then we'll do it again. 2 trebles into the same stitch and then 1 treble into the next stitch, and then one more time, 2 trebles into the next stitch and 1 treble into the next stitch, which leaves 1 stitch left, and we're going to work 2 trebles into that stitch, and then we will join to the top of the chain 3 that we started with a slip stitch. There we go, and fasten off. There we go. So that's the top of the bell. We now need to add a little bit more in cornfield on to make the bottom of the bell. So we're going to join some more cornfield on to the bottom left corner chain space. So if you're left-handed, it'll be the right-hand one. If you're right-handed, it'll be the left-hand one. So turn your bell upside down, and because this is a chain stitch, I'm going to do this with, rather than just putting through a loop, I'm going to do this with the slip knot and slip stitch method that we've used before, so that it's nice and secure. And then we'll start with 3 chains. 1, 2, 3, and then we'll work 1 treble into the same corner chain space where we join the yarn. There we go. And then we'll work 5 trebles, so over the next 5 stitches work 1 treble into each of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then over the next 2 stitches, over the same stitch that you've just worked into and the next stitch, well, we're going to work a treble crochet 2 together, but make sure you put the first part, the first leg of your treble crochet 2 together into the same stitch that you've just crocheted into. So yarn over, insert your hook into the same stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, then yarn over and pull through 2 loops, and then yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, then yarn over and pull through 2 loops, and then complete your treble crochet 2 together, pulling through the remaining 3 loops. Then you're going to make a treble into the same stitch where that second leg of your treble crochet 2 together went, so not into the next stitch but into the same stitch where you've just worked. So just a treble crochet into there, and then make 4 more treble crochets. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that will take you to the corner chain space, and you need to work 2 treble crochets into that corner chain space. 1, 2, and then fasten off. There we go, and that's the bell all ready to add the clapper. So we're going to create the clapper using the chocolate coloured yarn, so turn your bell round if you need to so that its bottom is at the top, and we're going to join the chocolate yarn to the back loop of the 7th stitch of this row along the bottom, which is referred to in the pattern as partial round 4 of the bell. So counting the 3 chains at the start as the first stitch, count along 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and join this chocolate yarn to the back loop of that stitch. So just push your hook through the back loop, pop a loop of chocolate yarn over your hook and pull through. And then we're going to make 7 half trebles in the back loop only of the next stitch, which was that treble crochet 2 together that we did in the middle there. So we'll work 1, 2, I like to work these over the tail just to helps to secure it, and then I can pull it tightly as well to get that first stitch nice and tight. So I've done 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then we just finish off the clapper by doing 1 slip stitch into the back loop only of the next stitch along. So just make a slip stitch through that back loop and pull it nice and tight and fasten off. And that's your bell with its clapper made. Next we're going to make a bow to go on the top of our bell, and that's going to be made with the signal red yarn. And to start with, we just need to make a row of 22 foundation treble crochets. So make a slip knot, put your yarn on your hook, and away you go. So I'm going to make mine now, and then I will join you at the end of those 22 foundation treble crochets to show you how to finish it off. So I've finished my 22 foundation treble crochet, and I'm just going to fold this piece of crochet around to make a loop, taking care not to twist it, and I'm going to join it with a slip stitch, with 2 slip stitches. So I'm just going to make the first one into the top of that chain 3 where I started the foundation treble crochets, and then I'll make 1 more going through the bottom part of both the last foundation treble crochet that I made and the bottom of that chain 3. This bit's going to be hidden on the back of your bow, so don't worry if it's not the neatest, but just pull those nice and tight, and then fold your loop so that that join is in the middle at the back. And then we're going to make 7 chains, continuing with the same yarn. Make 7 chains, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then with your loop held in that way, keeping your hook in your chain if you can, wrap those 7 chains tightly around the middle of the bow just to pinch it in twice. If you find that 7 chains is too many or you need an extra, that's absolutely fine. Just do however many you need to wrap it round twice. You want it to be quite nice and tight so that it's really pinching in the middle of the bow, and then just join that final chain to the first one with a slip stitch, making sure your yarn you're using doesn't go round the bow the wrong way. And pull it nice and tight, and then fasten off and leave an end long enough, it doesn't need to be very long, to sew your bow onto your blanket later. We'll show you where to sew it on later. And then you have your bell and a bow, and you need to make 2 each, 2 bells and 2 bows ready to sew on later. To make the hobby horse, we're going to use cream, chocolate, royal, signal red, black and cornfield yarns. And we start off with the head, and this starts off in the same way that we've started several of the toys now, with a magic ring, 3 chains for the first treble, 11 more trebles around and joining with a slip stitch. So you've got a ring of 12 trebles. And then we move on to making the nose, continuing with the same yarn. We don't fasten off. So row 1 of the nose starts with 2 chains. 1, 2, and those 2 chains count as 1 half treble stitch. Then we're going to work 3 more half trebles, and they go into the next 3 stitches around the head. So 1, oops, 2, 3. And at this point, we're just going to pop a stitch marker into the treble from that starting circle where we worked that last half treble, just so we can find it easily later. Then we turn our work over, and the next row of the nose starts with 2 chains again, which again counts as 1 half treble, and then we work 3 more half trebles into the next 3 stitches. So the last one will go into the top of that chain 2 from the start of the previous row. So this first half treble from the previous row here, we've already got our half treble into it with these chain 2. So work the next one into that next stitch. So that's 1, 2, and then the third half treble goes into the top of that chain. Then we turn our work over again for row 3 of the nose, and this row starts with just 1 chain, and then we work a double crochet into the next stitch. So we skip this first stitch and work a double crochet into the second stitch, and that chain plus double crochet counts as 1 double crochet 2 together. And then over the next 2 stitches, which are a half treble and the chain 2 that we started the previous row with, we're going to work 1 more, or 1 double crochet 2 together. So we insert our hook into the next stitch, the top of the next stitch, and pull up a loop. Then we insert our hook into the top of the chain 2 and pull up a loop. So we've got 3 loops on our hook, yarn over and pull through all of those loops, and then we're going to fasten off. Like that. So next up we're going to add on a neck to our horse's head, and we're going to do that by joining the cream yarn again to the stitch that we marked with the stitch marker. So I'll just take it out the way, pop my hook through that stitch and pull through a loop of cream yarn. And then the first row of the neck begins with 2 chains, which counts as 1 half treble crochet, and then we're going to work 3 more half treble crochets, so they go into the next 3 stitches around the circle. So there's 1, 2, and 3. And we turn over, so we've got 4 half trebles in that row, a chain 2 which counts as 1 plus 3 more. We turn over our work, and the next row starts with chain 2, which as always counts as 1 half treble crochet. Then we're going to work 2 half trebles across the next 2 stitches, so 1 in each of the next 2 stitches. 1, giving it a little wiggle through. There we go, 2, and then all we've got left to work into is the chain 2 from the start of the previous row, and into the top of that chain 2 we're going to work 2 half trebles. One, two. So at the end of this row, including the chain 2 as a half treble, we've now got 5 stitches, 5 half treble stitches. So we turn our work over again, ready for row 3, and again this starts with 2 chains, 1, 2, which count as 1 half treble, and then we're going to work 1 more half treble into this same stitch, the stitch at the bottom of the 2 chains, and then over the next 4 stitches, ending with the chain 2, we're going to work 4 half treble stitches, 1 in each of them. So 1, 2, 3, and then the last one, the 4th one, goes in the top of the chain 2. 4. Turn our work over again. For the 4th row, we start with 2 chains, 1, 2, and then we work 4 half trebles across the next 4 stitches. So that chain 2 counts as the half treble into the 1st stitch. So the next half treble goes into the 2nd stitch. So we've got 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then into the very last stitch, which is the chain 2 that we started the previous row with, we're going to work 2 half trebles. So 2 half trebles into the top of that chain 2. 1 and 2. Then we turn our work over again, so we're working on the front of the work, but we're not going to fasten off because we're going to continue with this yarn that's attached to our hook to make the edging around the head. So to make the edging, essentially what we're going to do is work all the way around what we've already crocheted with double crochet stitches. The exact number that you make isn't too important, you just want them to be nice and evenly spaced, but in the written pattern there's a guide of approximately how many you should be making. So we start with 1 chain, and then across the bottom of the neck work 1 double crochet into the end of each half treble, into the top, sorry, of each half treble. 2, so there'll be 7 across here, ending with 1 into the top of the chain 2. And we're going to work up the side of the neck, and here we're going to work approximately 3 double crochets across every 2 rows of half treble crochet, but you don't have to be accurate, just keep it nice and evenly spaced so it doesn't bunch up your work or make it too loose. One, 2, and another one. And then we get to the top of the head, and working around this part of the circle where we haven't crocheted into any of these stitches yet, we'll work approximately 2 double crochets into each of these treble stitches. So I'm going to work 1 into this one before going on to the unworked stitches. 1, 2, 2 into this one, 1, 2, 2 into the next one, 1, 2, and 2 into the next one, 2 into the one after that, and we're nearly round to the nose now. I'm going to work a double crochet as well into that stitch, finish the 2 in this one, and then I'm going to work a double crochet as well into that stitch where the nose started from, just to keep things even, so you can judge it as you go. And then we've got to go around the nose. So around the nose, in the 2 rows of half double crochet, you'll probably want about 3 double crochets into the sides of those rows. 1, 2, 3, and then across the end of your nose, well, around the end of your nose, I'd suggest 1 double crochet into the side of each double crochet 2 together, and then 1 into the top of each double crochet 2 together. But just see how it looks for you, and if you feel like you need to work an extra one in to get around without things bunching up, then that's absolutely fine. And then we're back on the underside of the nose now, working approximately 3 double crochets into the 2 rows of half treble. And then all we've got to do now is go along this side of the neck, working again 3 double crochets into every 2 rows of half treble crochet. So let's go 1, 2, oops, try that one again, 3 across those 2 rows, and 1, 2, 3 across those 2 rows, and then I'm going to work 1 more double crochet into the side of that first double crochet I made before making a slip stitch to the very first double crochet to join that round of edging, and then I'm going to fasten off. So it's beginning to take shape now and look like a horse's head. So next we're going to move on to the ear. So to work the ear, you want to find the 3 double crochets that are at the top of your head, and we're going to work the ear across those 3 double crochets. So just have a look at your work and identify the 3 where you want to place your ear. And for right-handers, you'll be starting in the right hand of double crochet of these 3 double crochet, and for left-handers you'll be starting in the left hand one. So all of the stitches for the ear are worked into the front loop only of these 3 stitches. We need to leave the back loops unworked. So insert your hook into the first stitch, so on the right hand side for right-handers or the left hand side for left-handers, and join some more of your cream yarn. And then we'll work 1 chain, which doesn't count as a stitch. And then into the next stitch, we're going to work all our stitches into the front loop only of the next stitch to form the ear. So we're going to work into the front loop of the next stitch a half treble crochet, then a treble crochet into that same front loop, and then a double treble crochet into that front loop, followed by another treble crochet, remember all into that same front loop, and another half treble crochet into that same front loop. And then we'll make a slip stitch into the front loop of the next stitch, that third stitch that you identified at the start. Slip stitch into that front loop, pull it nice and tight and fasten off, and then we've got our ear there at the top of the horse's head. Next up, we're going to add a mane to our horse, and we're going to do that using the loop stitch that we used in the Loopy Foliage panel. So to do this, remember loop stitches are always worked on the wrong side, so we're going to turn the horse's head over, and we're going to join the chocolate yarn to the double crochet as you're looking at it now on the wrong side, immediately after the ear, so just at the top of the horse's nose, sort of on their forehead here. And we're going to join it to the double crochet immediately after. So that slip stitch is going into that one, so it's this one here that we're going to join it to. Move that end out of the way, so I'm just going to pull through a loop of chocolate yarn. Then we're going to work one chain. Make sure you use the right end of your yarn, and then in each double crochet working along, we're going to work 2 loop stitches. So in this double crochet we can work them all the way through the double crochet. When we're working in the 3 double crochets where we added the ear, we're going to use those unworked back loops, which are now on the side of our work facing us, that we left free when we made the ear. So I'll just show you how that goes. So into this first double crochet we'll work 2 loop stitches, 1. Remember, to make a loop stitch you have the yarn going up the front of your finger, down the back. You insert your hook into the stitch, pass it around to the right of that front strand, grab the back one through, pull it through so you've got 2 loops on your hook, then yarn over and pull through those 2 loops. So we've got our 2 loops now in that first stitch, and then we're going to work 2 into each of the next 3 unworked back loops. So can be a little bit fiddly because you're working these loop stitches into quite a small piece of crochet, so just take your time and you will get there. There's only a few loop stitches to do. Poke my finger in quite a long way on that one, which can make it tricky to get out. Find it best if you just use the tip of your finger. There we go, and then 2 into the next back loop. Gets easier once you've passed the ear again. If you find that your loops are getting a bit bigger than you'd like, when you get to this stage you can just pull on this end of the yarn if you want to make them a bit shorter. If you find it easier to make them bigger, just give it a little tug and you can make them smaller before you do that final yarn over and pull through. So we've got another loop stitch to make into that back loop. My cream yarn's getting in the way. You might find it helpful to sew in your ends of cream yarn before you start this bit. and then 2 more into the next back loop behind the ear. And then we're just going to continue making loop stitches down the neck of the horse. You can go as far as you want really, and these remaining loop stitches are all going to be made through the whole of the double crochet. You don't have to worry about working into the back loop only. One, two into that one. Oops. And 2 into that one. So I'm just going to keep loop stitching all the way down the neck until I get to the base, or as far as you want to go, and then I will meet you at the end of this section, at the end of the mane. So I've just worked the final loop stitch into the double crochet at the bottom of the neck, and I'm going to fasten off my chocolate yarn now. And turn my work back over to the right side to see the horse's mane with its ear. There we go. Now we've got the head and the mane sorted. The next thing to add is a pole for our hobby horse, and we're going to do that using the royal blue yarn. So the pole's going to come out from the central 2 double crochet in the middle of the neck. So if you turn your horse round, so he's standing on his head, and then find those two central double crochets approximately in the middle where you want the pole to come out from. And for right-handers, you're going to start in the right-hand one, and for left-handers, you're going to start in the left-hand one. So just insert your hook into that double crochet. So I'm going to go for that one, and pop a loop of royal over your hook and pull it through. And then we're going to work foundation double crochet into the next double crochet along. So to do that, we just insert our hook into that next double crochet, pull up a loop, and then because it's foundation double crochet, before we complete the double crochet, we're going to make 1 chain. So yarn over and pull through the first loop, and then yarn over and pull through both loops. And then we're going to continue adding to this double crochet, foundation double crochet. So we insert our hook into the bottom of that first foundation double crochet, yarn over again, pull up a loop, make a chain, yarn over and pull through both loops, and we'll continue doing that until we have 8 foundation double crochets in total. So I will continue making mine and meet you at the end of those 8 foundation double crochets. So I finished my 8 foundation double crochets, and now I'm going to fasten off, and then it's time to add the final details to the head. So with the black yarn, you need to sew on a small black eye, and then using the red yarn, we're going to surface crochet on a bridle. And if you look at the photos, you'll see the approximate location of the bridle. It'll go across the nose, up to behind the ear, and then another bit coming down from the ear. And when you're surface crocheting the bridle, just start it on the back of your work. So I'll show you one now that was prepared earlier. So here it is with, as you can see, it's got a black eye on and the red bridle surface crocheted on. When you're doing the surface crochet bridle, I recommend starting on the top of the nose and just join your yarn at the back of your work. So push your hook through one of the white stitches, cream stitches on the back of your work, pull up a loop of the red yarn, and then turn your work over and surface crochet as you would normally by inserting your hook from the front to the back to pull up more loops, and continue the surface crochet to make the bridle, and that way you'll get that nice effect of the bridle wrapping around the horse's nose. Then the final thing to do is to make the wheel to go at the bottom of the pole, and that's made using cornfield yarn, using the technique that we've used several times already now, with a magic ring, chain 3, 11 more treble crochets into the ring and join it with a slip stitch. So you've got a ring of 12 treble crochets, and then you'll just sew your wheel and your horse with its pole onto the blanket in the appropriate position. To make the duck, we're going to use cream, cornfield, black and royal yarn, and we're going to start with the body, and the body starts in a way that we've done before already. So it starts with a magic ring, chain 3, 11 more treble crochets into that double ring, so we've got a ring of 12 treble crochets, and then we start the next round with a chain 3, which counts as a treble crochet, another treble crochet into that same stitch, and then work 2 treble crochets into each of the treble crochets from round 1, so we end up with a round of 24 treble crochets, and then we're ready to do round 3, which is a partial round. These rounds create the duck's tail. So still working on the right side of your work, so all of rounds 1, 2 and this partial round 3 are worked on the right side. We're going to chain 3, which counts as 1 treble crochet, and then work 4 treble crochets, so these go across the next 4 stitches. So 1, 2, 3 and 4, and then across the next 2 stitches we'll work 1 treble crochet 2 together. So we yarn over, insert our hook into the next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, so we've got 3 loops on our hook, yarn over and pull through 2 loops, leaving 2 loops on our hook, then we yarn over again, insert our hook into the next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, so there's 4 loops on our hook, yarn over and pull through 2 loops, leaving 3 loops on our hook, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops to complete 1 treble crochet 2 together. Then we're going to turn our work over, so the final, it's not really a round anymore, is it? It's just a row across the tail. This one's worked on the wrong side. I'm going to start this with a chain 2 chains, and then into the next stitch, so not this first stitch at the bottom of the 2 chains, into the next stitch we'll work 1 treble, and then that combination of 2 chains plus 1 treble into the next stitch counts as 1 treble crochet 2 together. Then we'll work 3 trebles, so spread across the next 3 stitches, each one gets 1 treble crochet, so 1, 2 and 3, and then into the final stitch, which was that chain 3 at the start of the previous row, we're going to work 2 treble crochets into the top of that chain 3, so 1 and the last one 2, and then we'll fasten off. Oops. There we go. Turn it back over to look at the right side. So that is your duck's body made. Then we'll move on to making the head, and this starts in the same way as round 1 of the body. So we have a ring of 12 treble crochets joined with a slip stitch, and then the second round, to complete the head, we make 1 chain and then 1 double crochet into that same stitch, and then we continue all the way around working 2 double crochets into the same stitch and then 1 double crochet into the next stitch. So I'll work 2 double crochets into the same stitch, and then 1 double crochet into the next stitch, and then 2 double crochets into the next stitch, and then 1 double crochet into the next stitch. And you just continue this pattern, alternating 2 1 2 1 double crochets into each stitch all the way around, and you'll end with 2 double crochets into the last stitch, and that should give you a total of 18 double crochets. 2 into this one, 1 2 1 into that one, then 2 into the last one, and then we just join to the very first double crochet with a slip stitch. Put it nice and tight and fasten off. Oops. Just pull it through, and that's the main part of the head made. So next we're going to add a beak to the head, and we're doing that using the yellow cornfield yarn. So you can add the beak at any point around your head. So select any double crochet you like, and we're going to join the yarn to the front loop only of one of the double crochets, like that. And then we're going to be working in the opposite direction to what you might expect. So if you're right-handed, we're going to be working clockwise around the ring, and if you're left-handed, we'll be working anti-clockwise. But we're going to work 1 slip stitch into the front loop of each of the next 2 double crochets. So I'm going to move to the right, insert my hook through the front loop of the next double crochet, and yarn over and pull through, and then do the same thing. Move to the right, insert my hook through the front loop of the next double crochet, yarn over and pull through. So we've got 2 slip stitches there. Then next we're going to work 1 foundation treble crochet into the front loop of the double crochet where we initially joined the yellow yarn. So it's this front loop here, which you can still see. Just put my hook under it for you. We're going to work a foundation treble crochet into that front loop. So we'll yarn over, insert our hook under that front loop, yarn over and pull through. So we've got 3 loops on our hook. Then we're going to make a chain, so yarn over and pull through that first loop. We've still got 3 loops on our hook, and we complete the treble as normal. So yarn over and pull through 2 loops, and yarn over and pull through 2 loops. Then we're going to work 1 more foundation treble crochet. So we yarn over, insert our hook into the bottom of the previous foundation treble crochet, yarn over and pull up a loop, make a chain, and then complete the treble crochet as normal. Then we're going to work a foundation half treble crochet, which is worked in a similar way, but we do 1 yarn over, insert our hook into the bottom of the previous foundation treble crochet, yarn over and pull up a loop. Then we make a chain, so yarn over and pull through 1 loop, and then we complete the foundation half treble, so we yarn over and pull through all of these three loops in one go. And then we end with a foundation double crochet. So for this one we simply insert our hook into the bottom of the foundation half treble, yarn over and pull up a loop, make a chain, and then complete the double crochet by yarn over, pull through 2 loops, and then we'll fasten off. So all that the head needs now is an eye, which you can just sew on with some of the black yarn, and then you've got your head, and mine's facing the wrong way. You've got your head and your body, and then it's a duck on wheels, so it needs 2 wheels, and we just make those in the same way that we did the centre of the head and the body with the ring of 12 treble crochets, and those are made with the royal yarn. And once you've got all those pieces ready, you just sew them onto your blanket in the appropriate location as shown in the photo. So to make Santa's hat, we are of course going to be using the Signal Red and Cream yarn, and Santa's hat starts with a row of 16 foundation treble crochets. So make a slip knot, pop it on your hook, chain 3 for the first foundation treble crochet, work your next foundation treble crochet into the bottom of that chain. Don't forget to make a chain before you complete each treble, and continue along until you've made 16 foundation treble crochets, and I will keep making mine and meet you at the end of this row. So I finished row 1 of 16 foundation treble crochet, and then I'm going to turn my work over to work back along for row 2. So row 2 starts with 2 chains and then 1 treble crochet into the next stitch, not the first stitch at the bottom of the 2 chains, but the next one along. Every time you start a row with this pattern of stitches, 2 chains, and then 1 treble into the next stitch, that counts as 1 treble crochet 2 together. So you're never going to be working into the top of those 2 chains, just into the top of the treble. Then we're going to do 12 trebles, 1 into each of the next 12 stitches, 2, 3, 4, and this will take us nearly to the end of the row, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then 1 more. We'll have 2 stitches left, including that chain 3 at the start of our foundation treble crochet row, and across these last 2 stitches we're going to work 1 treble crochet 2 together. So we've decreased, we will have, when I've made this stitch, we will have decreased at each end of the row. So we've got a treble crochet 2 together and the equivalent, a 2 chain and then a treble into the next stitch at each end of the row on row 2. There we go. And then for row 3 we're going to turn over, and it's the same pattern. We're going to be decreasing at both ends of the row again. So we're going to start with a chain 2, 1, 2, and then a treble into the next stitch. So not in that treble crochet 2 together at the bottom of the chain 2, but into the next stitch. And then we'll make 10 more trebles and end with a treble crochet 2 together over the last 2 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Just get a bit more yarn. 9, oops, 10, and we've got 2 stitches left. We've got a treble and we've got the treble from the treble crochet 2 together, which we made from a chain 2 and a treble. So we've just got these 2 stitches left, and we're going to work 1 treble crochet 2 together over those 2 stitches. 1, then into the next one, yarn over and pull through. Then turn our work over again, ready to start row 4. Row 4 is slightly different, so we're not going to be making a symmetrical Santa's hat, so we're not just going to be decreasing at both ends of every row. On row 4 we're only decreasing at the start of the row, so we're going to chain 2 and then treble crochet into the next stitch for the equivalent of a treble crochet 2 together, and then we simply treble all the way to the end of the row, ending with a treble in the equivalent of a treble crochet 2 together that was at the start of the other row. So we're just going to make 10 more trebles all the way along to complete that row. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 2 more to go, 9 and 10, and then just keep following the pattern instructions, taking note of whether you're decreasing or not at each end of the row until you reach the end of row 10, and I will meet you there. So here we are at the end of row 10 of the hat. As you can see, it's not symmetrical. It's got a nice jaunty angle for this Father Christmas's hat. And at the end of row 10, we turn our work over, ready to add a round of edging of double crochet just to neaten up all the sides. So we start the edging off with 1 chain, which doesn't count as a stitch, and then we're going to do a double crochet 3 together. So the last row, row 10, had 3 stitches in it. It had a double crochet 2 together made by a chain 2 and a treble, and then 2 more trebles. So across the tops of these 3 stitches we're going to double crochet 3 together. So to do that, we insert our hook into the first stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, insert our hook into the next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop, and then insert our hook into the third stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. So you'll have 4 loops on your hook. Then we just yarn over and pull through all of those 4 loops together. Then we're going to continue all the way around the hat, and we're going to make approximately, you don't have to be too accurate, but nice and evenly, making 2 double crochet in the sides of each row of the hat, 2 double crochets in each of the bottom corners just to go round the corner, and then 1 double crochet in the bottom of each of the foundation treble crochets. So I will start that off now and then meet you at the end of the round of edging. So I've crocheted double crochet all the way around the edge of my Santa's hat now, and I'm back up to the top, and I'm just going to complete that round of edging with a slip stitch into the top of that double crochet 3 together that I started it all off with, and then fasten off with, if you can, leave a nice long end long enough for sewing your hat onto your blanket shortly. So the next step is to add a bobble to the top of our Santa's hat. So we're going to turn it over and we're going to join the cream yarn to the 4th stitch of the edging. So the edging, well, now we've turned it over, the edging went round this way, so that's the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th stitch of the edging. So we'll just pop our hook through that stitch and pull through a loop of cream yarn. Then we'll work one chain, and then into this same stitch where we joined the yarn, we'll work 2 loop stitches, both into the same stitch. 1, 2. Then we're going to work 2 more loop stitches, so 1 into each of the next 2 stitches. 1, 2, and into the 4th stitch, or the next stitch, we're going to work 2 loop stitches again into that same stitch. 1, 2. So we'll have worked 6 loop stitches in total. Then we turn our work over, and we're going to work 1 chain, which doesn't count as a stitch, and then 1 double crochet in each of those 6 loop stitches. Remember, it can be helpful to bend down, hold down your loops while you're working into the tops of them, just to make it easier to get your hook in. So we work a double crochet into the first, into the second, into the third, and the 4th, and the 5th, and then into the last one. There we go, into that 6th loop stitch. Turn our work over again, ready for row 3 of the bobble. Row 3 starts with 1 chain, and then we just work 6 loop stitches along, so 1 into each of those double crochets. So I will work my 6 loop stitches and then meet you at the end of this row. So I've reached the end of row 3 and I've made my 6 loop stitches. I'll turn my work over again, chain 1 to start the row, which doesn't count as a stitch, and then we start row 4 with a double crochet 2 together, so across the 1st and 2nd stitches. So we'll make a double crochet 2 together, and then we're going to work 2 double crochets, so 1 into each of the next 2 stitches. 1, 2, and then end with another double crochet 2 together over the last 2 stitches. So we have 4 stitches in total in this row, and then we'll turn over for row 5, the final row of the bobble, and then we'll work 1 chain and then 4 loop stitches, 1 into each of the stitches from the previous row. 1, 2, just get a bit more cream yarn, 3, and 1 more, 4, and then we'll fasten off now and leave an end long enough just for sewing the bobble part of the hat down onto your blanket. And let's turn it over and have a look. And there is the Santa's hat with its loopy bobble added on the top. So now we're going to add a loopy white trim to the bottom of our hat in a similar way. So we're going to turn our work over and upside down because we're going to be working along here. And then we're going to join our cream yarn to the double crochet at the lower left corner of the hat. So it's the lower right when you're viewing it from the right side, but when you're looking at the wrong side, it's the lower left. If you're left-handed, of course, it's the other way round. So find that double crochet, pull through a loop of cream yarn, and we start with one chain, which doesn't count as a stitch, and then we're going to work 2 loop stitches into this first stitch. 1, oops, 2, and then across the rest of the double crochet we're going to work 1 loop stitch into all of the next double crochets until we reach the last stitch, where we'll work 2 double crochets into that last stitch. You should have approximately 20 loop stitches. If you have a slightly different number, it's not the end of the world, it doesn't really matter, but you just want to make sure you get 2 loop stitches in the first and last double crochets of your row. So I'm going to complete this row and then meet you at the end of the row. So I've completed row 1 of the trim now, ending with 2 loop stitches into that last double crochet. So for row 2, you just turn your work over, chain 1 to start the row, and then work 1 double crochet in each of the loop stitches from row 1, and then you just continue working alternating loop stitch and double crochet rows, working 1 double crochet into each loop stitch and 1 loop stitch into each double crochet, starting each row with a chain 1, and keep going until you've completed 5 rows, ending with a loop stitch row, and just fasten off at the end of that row, leaving a nice long tail to attach the trim part of your hat to the blanket when you're done. To make the stocking, we're going to use the Signal Red yarn and the Emerald, the dark green yarn. And the first row starts with the Signal Red yarn. So make a slip knot, pop it on your hook, and row 1 of the stocking is just a row of 13 foundation treble crochet stitches. So chain 3, make your first foundation treble crochet into the bottom of that chain 3 with the chain 3 counting as your first foundation treble crochet stitch, and continue until you have 13 foundation treble crochets, and I will meet you at the end of row 1. So I'm near the end of row 1 now. I've just got 1 foundation treble crochet left to do, and at the end of this foundation treble crochet we're going to change colour to the emerald yarn. So when you get to the point where you've got 2 loops on your hook, before that final pull through, pop down your Signal Red yarn, pick up your emerald yarn, pop a loop on your hook and pull through with that ready to start row 2. Then you can cut off the Signal Red yarn, leaving an end to weave in later. And then for row 2, we turn our work over, move the tail out the way. We'll start with 3 chains, which counts as 1 treble, and then we're just going to treble all the way along, so 12 more trebles, so that we have 13 trebles in total, ending with the final treble in the top of that chain 3. So I'm going to make that now and then meet you at the end of the row. So here I am near the end of row 2. I've just got 1 last treble to make in emerald, but as we did at the end of row 1, we're going to change colour on the final pull through. So when we've got 2 loops left on our hook, we'll pop down the emerald yarn, pick up the Signal Red yarn, wrap that over our hook and pull through with that, and then snip off the emerald yarn. And then we just keep continuing in this way, working rows of 13 treble crochet, alternating colour and changing colour at the end of each row. So we'll keep going with that until the end of row 6, so we'll end with a row in emerald, and I will meet you again at the end of row 6. So as you can see, I've completed 6 rows now. I've just finished row 6 and I've got the red yarn on my hook all ready for row 7. And at row 7 we're going to start doing some slightly different stitches to start getting that turn in our stocking around the heel. So we turn over, we chain 3, 1, 2, 3, then we're going to work 4 treble crochets into the next 4 stitches. That chain 3 counted as a treble crochet into the first stitch. So there's 2, 3, 4, and then after the 4 treble crochets we're going to work 4 half treble crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then after those we're going to work 4 double crochets into the last 4 stitches of the row. 1, 2, 3, and on this final double crochet, as before, we're going to change colour to emerald on the final pull through. So before yarning over and putting through those 2 loops, we'll cut the red yarn and change to emerald, ready for row 8. So turn the work over. Row 8 starts with 1 chain, which doesn't count as a stitch. Then we'll work 4 double crochets, so they go into each of the 4 double crochets from the previous row. 2, 3, 4, and then we work 4 half treble crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we end with 5 treble crochets, changing back to signal red yarn at the end of the 5th treble crochet. Just get a bit more green yarn. So that's the 3rd treble crochet. Oops. The 4th one, and here's the last one, the 5th one. And we'll change colour to red at this point. And then for rows 9 to 14, so we've just done rows 7 and 8, rows 9 to 14, you just keep repeating these same 2 rows, going back and forth in red and green 3 more times until you get to the end of row 14, and I will meet you there. For the 15th row, you'll repeat this red row 1 more time, and then you'll do 2 rows just repeating rows 2 and 3, so the emerald straight row and the red straight row, and then I will meet you at the end of the 17th row, ready to start row 18. So here we are at the end of row 17. We've had some shaping rows with a mixture of stitches, and then the last 2 rows were just the same as the rows we started with, just straight rows of treble crochet all along. And at row 18 now we're ready to start the shaping for the toe. So we changed colour to emerald at the end of row 17. So I'm going to turn over my work and we'll start row 18 with 2 chains and then 1 treble into the next stitch, not the first stitch, the second stitch, and that counts as 1 treble crochet 2 together. Then we'll do 9 trebles, so 1 into each of the next 9 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, and that leaves 2 stitches left, and we're going to do a treble crochet 2 together over these last 2 stitches. And as usual with the stocking, we'll be changing colour back to signal red at the end of this row before making the final pull through. So when we have 3 loops on our hook, before making that final pull, yarn over and pull through, we'll cut the emerald yarn, pick up the signal red yarn again, yarn over with the signal red and pull through. So we have signal red on our hook ready to start row 19. So turn over the work again, and row 19 starts with 2 chains and then a treble crochet 2 together over the next 2 stitches, so not the first stitch but the next 2, and then this combination of 2 chains plus a treble crochet 2 together, overall that counts as a treble crochet 3 together. So we've decreased the first 3 stitches down to 1, and then we'll work 5 treble crochet, 1 into each of the next 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then we've got 3 stitches left at the end of the row, and we're going to do a treble crochet 3 together over these 3 stitches. So we yarn over, insert the foot hook into the first stitch and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops. So we've got 2 loops on our hook. Yarn over again, insert the hook into the next stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. So we've got 4 loops on our hook, yarn over and pull through 2 loops, leaving 3 loops on our hook. Same into the last stitch, so yarn over, insert your hook into that last stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. So we've got 5 loops on our hook, yarn over and pull through 2 loops, leaving 4 loops on our hook. And then before the final yarn over and pull through, we're going to change colour back to emerald again. So we'll snip the signal red yarn, get our emerald yarn and yarn over and pull through all of those loops with emerald. Turn over our work, ready to do the final row of the stocking with emerald. So that starts with 2 chains, 1, 2, and then a treble crochet 2 together over the next 2 stitches as we did before, with the whole thing counting as a treble crochet 3 together. There we go. And then we're going to just work 1 treble into the next stitch, and then we've only got 3 stitches left, so we're going to work a treble crochet 3 together over those 3 stitches as well, and into the last stitch. And this time this is the last row, so we don't need to change colour at the end. We'll just finish off that stitch with the emerald yarn and fasten off, and we can leave a nice long tail of emerald to sew on the stocking with. I suggest you just use, although there's lots of stripes, just use emerald, and when you sew it on, just make your stitches through the green sections around the stocking. There we go. And that is the main part of the stocking complete, ready to add the trim. So to crochet the trim, make sure you have the right side of your work facing you like this, and we're going to make the trim in a similar way to we did for the Santa's hat with cream yarn. And you join the cream yarn to the bottom of the first front foundation treble crochet that you made in row 1, so it's at the top of the stocking, and the trim starts with 1 row of double crochet, so 13 double crochets all the way along. Turn your work over and work a row of 13 loop stitches, and you keep repeating that until you've completed 6 rows in total, ending with a row of loop stitches. And when you fasten off your cream at the end of row 6, don't forget to leave a nice long end for sewing that trim part of the stocking onto your blanket. I'm going to show you how to add the bows onto the top of your 4 presents at the bottom of the train panel. So each bow is going to be made of 2 loops, and 1 loop is going to be attached to the top left front post crochet in the colour of the ribbon and the next stitch along from the present, and then the other loop is going to be attached to the right hand top stitch of the ribbon, the front loop of that, and then the front loop of the next stitch along from the present. So if you're right-handed, you'll attach your yarn to the right stitch of each of these pairs. So it would be this one, the top left stitch of the ribbon, and then this one, the right hand stitch immediately after the ribbon. If you're left-handed, it would be the top right stitch of the ribbon and the stitch immediately to the left of the ribbon. So you begin by inserting your hook under the front loop of the stitch where you're going to start your ribbon from, or your bow, and just pull up a loop. And then we're just going to simply work by crocheting foundation half treble crochets, and we're going to work the first one into the loop of the stitch immediately to the left of where you joined the yarn, or to the right if you're left-handed. So to work a foundation half treble, you yarn over, insert your hook into the front loop of that next stitch along, yarn over and pull up a loop. So you've got 3 loops on your hook, and then before completing a half treble you're going to chain 1. So yarn over and pull through 1 loop on your hook, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on your hook to complete the foundation half treble crochet. And then you're going to continue doing this until you've got 19 foundation half treble crochets in total. So for the next one, you yarn over, insert your hook into the bottom of the previous foundation half treble crochet, so under the 2 strands at the bottom of that stitch, yarn over and pull up a loop. So you'll have 3 loops on your hook, make a chain, so yarn over and pull through 1 loop, and then complete the half treble by yarning over and pulling through all 3 loops. I'll show you that one more time. Yarn over, insert your hook in the bottom of the foundation half treble crochet, yarn over and pull up a loop, make a chain with that first loop, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops, and keep going until you've completed 19 foundation half treble crochets, and I'll meet you at the end of that run of stitches. So I've finished my run of 19 foundation half treble crochets now. So all I need to do is fasten off and leave a reasonable length of yarn on your end, because you're going to use that in a moment to attach this end of your ribbon to your blanket. So all you do is fold the ribbon over backwards behind itself, and then secure this top end of your foundation half treble crochets to the blanket behind the first end. Then you can leave the loops loose, floating about like that, or if you want to, you can just work another stitch near the top of that loop to secure the top of the loop to the blanket as well, if you don't want them flopping over. It's up to you. And then work another loop in the 2 available front loops in the next 2 stitches along, another bow loop, starting from there and working 19 foundation half treble crochet stitches again and securing it to the blanket in the same way, and just complete the same thing in the appropriate colours for all of the other 3 presents. So this week we've learnt a couple of new techniques. We've learnt the mosaic crochet for the red and white stripes. We've learnt loop stitch for the lovely loopy foliage. So I really hope you enjoy those. Don't worry if you're not keeping up at all. The pattern is going to be available for free always on the Sirdar website, and these videos are always going to be available as well to help you, so you can take as long as you need to complete this blanket. We're still quite away from Christmas if that's your target. So there's only one part left of the pattern now, week 6, so I'm really looking forward to seeing you again next week for the last and final part of the pattern.